Today we are kicking off the first of 4 events, Pro-Con at the Pier. We present pro and con research on controversial issues. We do it for the public. We do it so that people can see both sides of issues so they can be better informed and make better decisions. We're going to be talking about rent control today.
I want the crowd to cheer loudly if they agree with the following statement. We need more housing in Southern California.
I would say, actually, first off, that rent control itself doesn't prevent new construction. Let's be absolutely clear about that.
The Swedish economist Assar Lindbeck said rent control is the best way to destroy a city after carpet bombing.
I live in Highland Park, a community that, rapidly gentrified in the last 10 years. A lot of folks that I knew ended up getting evicted and thrown out of their homes precisely because of the vertiginous increase in the cost of rent.
Let's put whatever you all do, whatever your job is, let's put a price control on that. And in fact, the fact that it's housing is different. No, markets work the way markets work. Now, the fact that housing is important, well, food's important. Let's try putting food price controls on food, and let's see how long it takes before we have bread lines.
And all we're saying with Prop 10, allow cities to make their own choices. I would think that someone who is a libertarian and would think that, people should have the choice, the democratic choice to make about what policies that they want, that they would support local communities being able to choose for themselves what kind of policies that they should have.
Well, we actually believe in property rights rather than having governments force us to do things. Renee, do you have a property or do you own anything? Do you own a car?
My mother owns a property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you own a car that I could cap what you sell it for?
Okay, folks, well, the sun is setting behind us and the sun has set on our discussion.
Medical marijuana has been legal in California since 1996. California legalized adult use marijuana in 2016 via a ballot proposition. Since Will flew the furthest here, I'm going to let you go first.
Awesome, thank you. So what we've had with marijuana is that for African Americans, we're 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana use if you're black than if you're white. And so the logic was that if we legalized, then the amount of people of color in prison would go down. Often when I'm giving discussions, I'll put $100 on the table and say, anybody in the audience can come up and take this $100. Just tell me which state, name the state, that reduced the amount of people of color in prison since they legalized. The answer is no state has done this.
I keep hearing the phrase that, we're this multi-billion-dollar industry, getting the tone that we're only concerned about raising money and making money. The only reason Kat Packer, a woman of color, got involved was to make sure that we are doing a better job of not targeting black and brown members of our communities, which the war on drugs did.
No one wants anybody to go to jail for using marijuana. If you want to do that in your house, great, good for you. But I do have a problem with what the impact that the industry will do, and we can measure the impact of the industry. We can look at what's happening in Colorado, where again, they have the highest youth use, first-time marijuana use in the country, and that's what you would expect from an industry.
This is a marathon, not a sprint. As we're 6 months in, and again, I keep hearing the term commercialization. I want to move towards normalization.
We're going to have a pro and con debate about whether to desalinate.
I am actually myself nearly 80% water on my mom and father's side. So desalination is basically technology that sucks in seawater, filters it through a membrane, turns it into potable water. Should we just try to make use of that? Should we turn that into this?
If we stay away from whether you're for it or against it, practically speaking, it's not going to be cost effective to desalinate seawater here and pipe it, 60 or 80 miles inland. That's not really a viable option. So you're really talking about the coastal population being served by the potential of seawater desalination, which is a significant majority of the population.
You look at Australia, which during their millennium drought, they had a 12-year drought and threw everything at it. They spent $10 billion building 6 desalination plants, and they have 4 of their desal plants, which are now defunct. And I know at least one of the communities has to pay hundreds of millions of dollars a year for a holding charge for a plant that's sitting idle. They found that conservation and efficiency in some of their alternatives were sufficient for meeting their needs.
The topic tonight is whether or not to abolish ICE, aka Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It was created in 2003 as part of the Department of Homeland Security in the wake of 9/11. It has several important functions, including investigating certain kinds of crime, like drug trafficking and human trafficking, representing the government in legal proceedings, immigration proceedings, and enforcement and removal operations. And it's the latter that's really the reason we're here.
What ICE actually does is they enforce the laws as written by the Congress of the United States. The prosecution of individuals for legal entry is Section 275 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. HHS gets jurisdiction over the custody of children because of Section 463 of the Homeland Security Act, which was added by Zoe Lofgren at a committee hearing that I attended.
I mean, does abolishing ICE actually solve the problem, or is it really we just need to change the laws?
We positively need to change the laws, so at least we're finding some consensus here on the stage about that. And Congress has an obligation, but it has an inability to do this. And in fact, ICE has actually taken on a political role by it's sort of incentivized to prevent Congress from resolving what is a vexing political issue and a civil rights and a question of equality for undocumented people. It literally lobbies against efforts for immigration reform.
Barbara Jordan herself actually said that absent a compelling national interest, immigration should be based on merit, should be based on skills.
We have the closest thing that exists to a national consensus in this country over something called the DREAM Act, which is namely that people who came to the United States as infants and as children should have the right to political equality, the same shot to citizenship as people like Lewis and Clark and others who colonized and came to the United States. Something like 9 out of 10 Americans believe that dreamers should be granted a path to citizenship, and yet Congress is unable to act on that consensus.